Time being 6:15, I'm going to call the Board of Health meeting to order. 3 members are present, Susan Emery, Jason Harris, myself, as well as Eddie Murphy from the Health Department. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. The first item on our agenda are announcements from the Health Department, so I'll turn it over to Eddie Murphy.
I have one thing to mention. Saturday, June 22nd, there's a drive-through rabies clinic over at the Whitman VFW, 95 Essex Street in Whitman, from 10 to 12. The cost is $20 cash per shot. Proof of prior vaccine for the 3-year shot, no proof of prior for the 1-year shot, and that's sponsored by the Whitman Health Department, and that'll be, I think, this Saturday. Other than that,
Eddie, what time is that again?
it's from 10 to 12 on Saturday, June 22nd.
Thank you.
Those are the only announcements I have right now.
All right. Any questions for the Health Department?
No, I saw the, your Facebook blast. Good job. Was that you?
We try.
There you go.
All right. Seeing no other questions, we'll move on to our discussion on action items for the evening. The first one being a discussion regarding animal regulations. Obviously, we started this last meeting. Everyone should have in their packet a copy of the permit application, which we started to look at last meeting, and the regulations governing keeping of animals draft, which was provided as a hard copy to everyone at the end of last meeting and then emailed out ahead of time. We're going to take some time to go through the regulations governing the keeping of animals. There are a couple of decisions we need to make in here and just figure out what kinds of things, if we want to add, subtract, if this is the scope we're looking for in accomplishing these animal regulations. So I know one of the first things, and this actually may be the only thing now that I think of it in here that we need to make a decision on is in the definition of animal, it has the number of rabbits that we want to limit, if at all, and the number of rodentia. Those are the only variables that are listed in this regulation for us to make, I believe. Yes. But we can, at this time, we can have a discussion about anything that's in here right now. We can make that decision after we have those discussions. So does anybody have any things they want to talk about specifically, any issues in here they want to mention? Something that doesn't make sense?
No, I thought it looked great.
Yeah, I don't really have an opinion. This isn't my expertise area, so I have a tendency to stay out of my area if I don't have an expertise in there. So I don't have an opinion either way. I would go with conventional wisdom of the room.
I think just a couple of things to draw everyone's attention to in here, because we kind of went over them last time, just to make sure everything makes sense and works. Section 4, and we'll skip kind of over the definitions, because the definitions only refer to everything that's in here right now, but Section 4 is pertinent specifically to the application that is provided, so it just goes through exactly what should be asked of for the fees that are determined on the fee schedule. So we're not going to set fees in this. We'll do it as part of our annual fee schedule, so that'll be a separate vote we'll need to take. So that way we can kind of keep that fluid and we don't have to change the regulation every time. It talks about when they expire. It also defines exotic and wild animals, that they should not be kept without written approval from the Board of Health or its authorized agent and in accordance with MGL. Permits aren't transferable, things of that nature, and they're also applicable by the zoning bylaws. It includes stables, which is essentially in relation to the bylaw that was passed at town meeting regarding the keeping of horses in stables. And I believe that the definition in here does line up with that which was voted on, or actually spoken about at town meeting, which was an accessory building or structure used for the shelter and or feeding of horses. That was a concern of the Finance Committee that we had that definition, and that is the one that we told them, and we are obviously sticking with. So it's clear in that section as well, this license shall be valid until the sale or transfer of the property. The facility standards section doesn't actually go into much detail, specifically because we didn't want to, in the past, we didn't want to have to make the decisions on every single thing for every type of facility. So they're just pretty general on that they should be maintained in a manner that keeps them clean, essentially, free from decaying food, filth. Dead animals should be disposed of, and they should comply with all the applicable provisions for livestock disease control. Variances are listed in there, how that should work, and exceptions as well. Just section 9 talks about compliance with animal requirements, so that's just stuff that the Department of Agriculture has, things in MGL, pretty much anything that's outside of our purview already. It's just ensuring that in order for us to be okay with a permit on that, that they follow those requirements. It also outlines the details for suspension and revocation of a permit, as well as the enforcement penalties. We'll probably want to have a discussion about what fines should look like. Right now, the fine is set at $50. The permit fee that we've been discussing in the past is $5 once. So this is $50 per day. That's a hefty fine. Again, these are draft, so we can knock that down a fair amount if we'd like to. But that's just what was put in here as an example. There's also right to a hearing, obviously that's in there, applicability, and severability in case something in here needs to come out. So this is just a brief overview of kind of the things that we're looking at in here. So we have a couple of decisions to make. If we want to wait until the rest of the board is here, we can do that. But those are the rabbits and rodentia numbers, as well as the fines, what those numbers should look like. Thoughts on how we want to proceed with this? Want to wait for everyone else?
I think that
Wanna give them
would
the
be-
opportunity?
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially Amanda has a lot of experience in this area.
That's fine.
You know,
All right, so we will table this until our next meeting to actually make those decisions and send it off.
Okay.
Actually, what even we probably can do is I can send it off to Greg now, get approval for the wording that's in there, and then we can
So
go
we're not
in and
wasting
just
time,
change
yeah.
the numbers.
yeah, it just seems only fair.
Yep, that's fine. And that's why I wanted to ask, because when I made the agenda, I wasn't expecting a quorum of 2.
Well, anytime
Agreed.
you're at this point in June, that these things come up, it's end of the year, things happen, and it's,
Right, we've also been sitting on this for several months, so we need to get them moving as fast as possible.
Okay.
Because the bylaws were approved pending this getting done, so we're just trying to fast track that. Okay, so we'll table that and we'll come back to it in July. Moving forward, discussion regarding pre-rental housing inspections. So this is just kind of an introduction thing, we're not gonna go into a ton of detail here, but it's something we're gonna start discussing over the summer, and especially by the fall, we'll get ready to ramp up into. What this was brought up to the board probably 2.5 years ago now. Ellen, you were there. And we were talking about doing inspections for rentals on a semi-frequent basis. There are a number of reasons for this, and I know Jason, as a building commissioner, will probably want to speak to some of those as well. But one of them, in the health department, we were receiving many phone calls of landlord didn't do this, or a bunch of issues in their rental or housing, or whatever it may be. And we felt that a lot of those issues could have been prevented if we had a regular system in place to make sure that those are up to the standards for human habitation. So we brought this up to the board, wasn't really working well at the time. We didn't really have a clear system in place on how to do it. The beauty, Jason being on the board, does have some experience doing this and some solutions that I think would be good for us to discuss. And Jason, I want to give you an opportunity if you want to kind of maybe talk through
Sure.
what that
I
looks
mean,
like.
We can certainly go in more depth when we have the full board here.
Yep.
But, being the building commissioner for the community and being on the front lines of what I see during the responses for the emergency response or for general inspections, you see the conditions that are becoming a massive issue here for the community. You have the rising housing cost here, and it's forcing folks to kind of congregate together and try to find occupancy however and wherever they can, including basements and attics and hallways, and it's super dangerous. I could certainly, once we get a lot more in depth, and the rest of the boards here, I can go really deep into what we've seen and, show reports, photographs, images, but, I've heard, it's an inconvenience, but the urgency far outweighs any type of inconvenience. We're in a position here where we can mitigate a lot of these critically hazardous conditions. You have occupancies here where you have block, egresses, no fire protection, no fire suppression. I could go on and on and on forever. But I think it'd be best if I maybe show some things to the board and at least get the discussion on the table, because, like I said, between myself, fire department, police department, it's scary what we're seeing out there right now, and it's just getting worse. It's not getting better. We had kind of the same situation in another community I worked in, and once this process was implemented, we went from maybe 4 or 5 cases a year, from 300-400 cases a year. So it definitely solves the issue, saves a lot of lives, not to mention, a host of other things that it'll do, but we should certainly get into it.
Thank you. What I think we're probably going to do with this moving forward, we'll probably take between July and August, just because we understand it's the summer, things are slow, for us to get up to speed with this information. There's a very good presentation that I know I emailed out to the board. We'll review here as well with some examples of what we're able to do in this capacity. Jason, I'm sure you'll include as well, just
Sure.
maybe some examples of situations where this would apply and be helpful. So I just think that would be good for all of us, and I think especially for residents, to see what we're going to do and try and mitigate that issue
Right.
moving forward. Anybody have any questions, concerns, comments?
No, I agree, and I think that we're very fortunate that Jason's on the board.
Wonderful. All right. With nothing else on that, we'll move forward to minutes for June 3rd. Everyone should have a copy of those. Do I have a motion on those?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of June 3rd.
Motion to accept the minutes by Susan. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Second from Jason. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous. All right. Moving on. Health agent report. Mr. Murphy.
So, just as last time, the inspections are ongoing. We're doing well with them. Also, we did our first test down at Island Grove for the water consistency. We started at the end of last week, so we'll be doing them weekly as we go along. That report's not back yet. Other than that, everything's slow and steady.
All right. And then inspections, everything's going fine?
Everything's going
Nothing
well.
major? You've had to call in, strikes or anything? No?
Everything's been going smooth.
Any questions for the health department on the report? None? Okay. Public comment? Public? Okay. Thank you. And correspondence, does the board or the health department have any correspondence to share?
No?
Not at this time.
Okay. Very quick agenda. All right. With that, that's the end of our agenda. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion
I
to
will
adjourn.
second.
Second from Jason. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We adjourned.